In this episode, I chat with Aimee Lucido, a professional trivia writer and crossword maker for publications like Bloomberg, The New Yorker, and The New York Times. This episode was a really big deal for me because it was kind of the very first official guest I've had on the show. Leading up until this point, I've been interviewing family and friends who are all very talented, and I love them very much. You know who you are. But Aimee was a referral I got from my favorite author, Evelyn Skye, who I had the pleasure of meeting at a book signing event recently. Aimee was super interesting to talk to, not only because she writes trivia and crossword puzzles professionally, but also because of her interesting journey from tech in Silicon Valley to full-time puzzle making. So we not only share a love of puzzles and trivia, but we also both got our start in the tech world. I test her knowledge in the longest crossword puzzle words, Jeopardy rules, and the history of Trivial Pursuit. We chat about her strategy when it comes to writing puzzles and how she personally likes to solve puzzles, like the ones in the coveted Learned League. She's known as the Quizmaster at Bloomberg for good reason, and you'll definitely learn a thing or two about trivia and trivia writing. Enjoy the episode! Welcome to Trivia Tangents, the edutainment podcast where we turn everyday passions into surprising trivia deep dives. I'm your host, Lena, and each episode I quiz a guest on something they know way too much about. We all know that on trivia night, the bigger the team, the better you'll play. That's why I bring the team together here on Trivia Tangents. So get ready for some fun facts you'll definitely want for your next trivia night. Welcome, Aimee, to the podcast. Thank you so much for being here.
Hi, I'm extremely excited to be here. I love trivia and I love talking about all things trivia and crosswords and books, and I'm excited to do that with you.
Yes, I'm so excited to have you on the podcast today. I think my listeners can sense my excitement, and I just want to share, you are my first official guest that is not someone I know through family or friends. So this is a really big deal for me because I feel like this is kind of taking my podcast to, one step further, one step to be more legit than it, already is. So thank you so much for being here. I'm really excited to chat with you all things trivia.
I'm honored. I think this is going to be so much fun. I love a trivia podcast. Let's do it.
All right, cool. And just to let the listeners know, how this happened. How the heck did I get in touch with such a talented trivia and crossword writer? I am so grateful that Evelyn Skye put us in touch. I had the absolute honor of meeting her during one of her book signings. I love how the world works like that. 1 minute, I'm meeting my favorite author and getting all her books signed, and then the next, I have the opportunity to interview a real-life trivia writer as a guest on my podcast. So thank you, Evelyn, for referring Aimee Lucido to me. I'm so excited to talk with you today, Aimee, and what a perfect guest you are for this podcast. I think we're going to have a lot of fun. I'm excited to talk more about your journey from software engineering in Silicon Valley to puzzle making for major publications. We'll dig into how you get your inspiration for crossword puzzles and trivia. And of course, it wouldn't be a Trivia Tangents episode without some fun trivia questions sprinkled throughout.
Can't wait. Yeah, I think it's amazing. The universe works in mysterious ways.
I'm really excited to talk to you because, your story really intrigued me since, your transition from tech to a more creative field. And for me, this is really, resonates because I currently live in Silicon Valley. And I know we previously talked about this, but, like everyone else here, I work in the tech industry, and I'm currently having a lot of fun branching out into the more creative world. So I would love to know, and if you could share with the listeners, can you share more about your journey starting as a software engineer and how a hobby or side gig with puzzle making turned into the real deal at Bloomberg?
So, yeah, my journey to where I am now has been a series of happy accidents, I feel like is the best way to put it. When I was in middle school and high school, I took some computer science classes, and I really liked them. I loved the video game Zelda. That was the gold standard for me. It was part story, part puzzle, part computer science. It was kind of perfect in all these ways that are still very important to me. And so I grew up kind of thinking I wanted to make video games. And when I went to college, I went to Brown, and they have a very good computer science program. And so I very quickly decided I was going to major in computer science. And that was just a very natural path. I was good at it. I liked it. I had this pipe dream of maybe being a video game someday. At the same time, I was taking a lot of literary arts classes just because I liked it. Brown doesn't have undergrad requirements. And so I had all these free courses, and I was like, what am I going to take? I'm going to read books. I'm going to write stories. Great. And I'm going to program computers. That's going to be my entire life at school. It's going to be awesome. And it was. And so I so I was at Brown. I was interning at these big tech companies. And the summer that I was at Google, for some reason, they killed my team before I got there or something. So I didn't have much work to do. And so I was literally spending my days like playing pool and eating 5 meals a day. And in between that very busy schedule that I had every day, I decided to write a book. And so I teamed up with a friend of mine and that friend's mom, who is also a young adult author, and also is friends with Evelyn, actually.
Oh, amazing.
And we decided that we were going to all write 500 words a day of a book. And I'd never written a book before, but I was like, I can do 500 words a day. That sounds easy. And I had all this time on my hands. And so I was writing way more than 500 words a day. And I had no idea, like, what I wanted to write, but I just kind of started typing, and a story came out of it. And I thought this book was like the most brilliant, genius thing in the entire world. The world didn't agree. So I tried to like revise this book and sell this book, and nobody wanted it because it's not very good. But it taught me that I can write a book and that I like writing books. And it taught me also that I could do that while also pursuing a tech career. So I was pursuing my tech career. I interned at Google, I interned at Facebook. I graduated with the double majors in computer science and literary arts. And I had this book that I was going to try to sell. And I was also going to be a software engineer. And so I went off and I worked at Facebook. And at this point, I wrote a second book because the first one wasn't very good. And I was never feeling like super fulfilled by just working as a software engineer. I don't think it was ultimately a very good fit for me career-wise. I don't like just sitting and coding all day.
Totally.
I don't even like sitting and writing all day. I like doing a lot of different things, it turns out.
Yeah.
And I was starting to feel like, I didn't want to be in tech, but I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. And so I decided to pursue, like, it's like, if I were to leave tech today, what would I go and do? And the answer was I would try to find a job in the publishing business in some way. So I interned for an agent. And at the end of that, it was like I did it for free for a couple of months. And I was just like reading slush that manuscripts that come in with an attempt to get published. And I was giving feedback on those. And at the end of that internship, she was like, you could come and work for me, but I feel like what you really want to do is write. And I was like, you're right. I really do want to write. And so she suggested that I get a low residency MFA. They have those specifically for children's book writing, which is what I wanted to do. And so at the same time as writing or as working as a software engineer, I decided to also go back to school and get my master's in writing for children and young adults. So for years, I was doing this kind of parallel thing. And the other thing that I haven't even mentioned was at the same time, I was also making crossword puzzles. And I started that also at Brown. And I almost forget about it because it was just such an accident. Like, it was just a fun thing that I did. I started it when I think I was a sophomore at Brown. And I learned to make puzzles. So I was in this puzzle club at school, and it was just because I liked puzzles. A lot of my friends liked puzzles. We just went to this puzzle club. And coincidentally, while I was at Brown, there were a lot of other puzzle associated people who were doing crosswords in different ways. Like, there were two people who had interned for Will Shortz. There was a competitive solver. We'd had a handful of people that had very coincidentally all had crosswords published in the New York Times. And so there were many ways that we were connected to the New York Times. So we decided to do a week of puzzles all made by Brown students. I decided that I was going to learn how to make puzzles for this. And so instead of studying for my philosophy final, my friend Jonah Kagan taught me how to make crossword puzzles. And
shout out.
shout out to Jonah, who I don't think he's even making crosswords anymore, but he does make board games. He taught me how to make crossword puzzles, and lo and behold, that first crossword puzzle was the Monday Puzzle for Brown Puzzle Club. And as a young woman in crosswords, there still are not a ton of us, but there were even fewer. And so
Facts.
people would, they saw my byline and they were like, I would love to mentor you. And so I started working with a mentor, Andrea Carla Michaels, who's also she's a phenom in the crossword industry. And every year I was making more puzzles than the year before. But it was always just this like random hobby, this like party trick I pull up and like, oh yeah, I make crosswords for the New York Times. And like, that's a conversation starter.
Totally.
And so I would like literally just forget that I did this, even though I made them for The Onion. I made them for the Crosswords with Friends app. Like I was making 10, 20, 30 a year at the same time as being a software engineer and then pursuing this writing career. So I graduated from my MFA program. I was still making a bunch of crosswords. I was making more and more, and it was becoming increasingly difficult to make all of them while also having a full-time job and pursuing this writing thing and trying to have a life, which I didn't really have a life. And I was starting to I graduated the program. I had a manuscript that an agent was interested in. We ended up selling that manuscript, which was my first book, Aimee and the Key of Code. So I have a book coming out. I'm getting paid for that. I have all these crossword gigs. I'm getting paid for that. And then I also have a tech job. And I'm like, this is a tech job that I didn't like. Right. And so I was like, this is insane. I need to drop something. So I ended up, I got married, got that health insurance, left my tech job. And I focused for 6 years on writing and on crosswords. So that's the two. So I lost one of my 3 parallel tracks, and then the pandemic hit, and everything kind of turned on its head for so many people. And there were a lot of ways that it really affected the writing industry in particular. But one of the silver linings for me personally was that I became really obsessed with Jeopardy and really obsessed with an online trivia league called Learned League. And let me just put this out there. I was awful. I was so bad. I was maybe getting like 20 to 25% of the questions right in my online trivia league. And I was in the absolute like bottom. They call them rundles. I was like the bottom rundle, not doing very well. And I was like, you know what? This is so silly. Like I am smart. I am capable. I'm not being asked to like cure cancer in these questions. They're literally just asking me like who the author is of this book or like what the capital is of this state or whatever. Things that I absolutely should know as like a citizen in America and like an author. It's like I should know who wrote famous
Brown
books.
University alumni.
Like there's no reason I shouldn't like just know kind of the world that I live in. And so I started to study. I started to make flashcards of just facts that I missed on Jeopardy and things that I missed on my Learned League thing. And my family made so much fun of me. They're like, why are you spending 2 hours a day studying like Oscar winners? It made no sense. But I was obsessed, and like it was all I could do. Yeah. And I started writing my own questions, and then I had long been affiliated with an independent puzzle publisher called AVCX, and I asked if I could make a biweekly or weekly trivia puzzle with a theme, and they were super into that. So I started editing these trivia puzzles, and then last year, 2024, someone reached out to me from Bloomberg, asking if I wanted to make a couple of like news quiz samples. Like if I were to make like my dream news quiz, what would that look like? And so I started making these examples, and we worked together. We came up with something that was really cool. And I was starting to feel like kind of feeling an itch of like, maybe I wanted to get back into like a corporate job. Maybe I wanted to like work with people again, be in an office. Because publishing has its issues, and like being a freelancer in general, just it has its pros and cons. And so as of February of this year, I have been making a weekly news quiz for Bloomberg. Amazing. And so it's this like super curvy, weird, it just has been a lot of following my instinct, following my interests. Like if I'm obsessed with something, there's a reason for that. And I follow that obsession, even if it makes no sense to anybody else.
Yeah. I love that story. Thank you so much for sharing that. It really shows, you go through a lot of ins and outs and turns and twists to really find what you're passionate about, what
Mhm.
you as a general statement. And it's so important to really follow your gut and your
Yeah.
instinct. And I feel that's so hard right
Mhm.
now. That's a whole other tangent, but you mentioned a few things that I want to touch on. Number one, your family during COVID was making fun of you. Come on. Like during COVID, everyone picked up these weird hobbies like baking
Sourdough.
bread. Yeah, I
Yeah.
was about to say baking bread. Literally the sourdough hype, like I don't even remember. I made like a million paper cranes
Yes.
just which reminds me of Evelyn's new book, also kind of about origami. But yeah,
Absolutely.
people had so many different hobbies. So it's like, hey, yours was not that weird in
I know.
retrospect, you know?
I think the weird part about it is that it lasted for so long. Like I was
Yeah,
spending an hour plus a day on flashcards, like up until I got this job, basically, like up until
yeah,
February.
yeah,
So like it really went 5 years where I was like
yeah,
studying flashcards. But I don't think people realize, like the people who are really good at trivia, the people who like win a lot of games in Jeopardy, the people
hmm,
who win the big, I mean, people don't even realize there are big trivia tournaments every year, but
right.
there are. Um, those people don't just like they don't just remember this stuff from like their high school science class. They're
Hmm.
they're they're studying it. They make a
Yeah,
practice of it. Um,
right.
so I think that's something that I didn't realize before I started
Hmm.
doing it.
It's a skill. It's a skill you have
It's
to
a skill.
practice. And
Yeah.
speaking of good trivia or strong trivia people, you and I have that, we both kind of started trivia for the same reason. We were bad at it.
Yeah.
You were like, why am I not getting these right? I'm a smart person. I graduated from Brown. Hello, I'm an author. And I kind of started this podcast because I was like, hey, why am I so bad at trivia? Like, I feel like if I just had a way to, learn it as I'm doing other things, because I'm such an auditory learner, this sort of thing, this sort of podcast needs to exist. So, yeah, I feel like that really resonated with me as well.
Absolutely. Isn't that funny? Like high achieving people don't like to be bad at stuff, you know?
Yeah,
Like
yeah, totally. Another part that you mentioned, I think it was when we chatted earlier, you mentioned that you really enjoyed the problem-solving part of software engineering, but it was, lacking the creative decisions. So I was curious, today, how do you incorporate your software engineer background into your current puzzle making and writing career today?
Yeah, so I feel like I will never escape software engineering. Like it is always a part of me, even though I'm not doing it on a daily basis. And it comes up in like all kinds of weird ways. Like, I mean, probably the most obvious way that it's shown up is my first book is called Emmy and the Key of Code.
Right.
And it's a book about a girl who comes from a family of musicians who finds computer science and starts to think in code. And the
Mm-hmm.
story is told in verse. But as Emmy learns different coding concepts, the verse starts to incorporate the language of Java, which is the language that I learned to code in and the language that my character learns to code in. And so, like,
Mm-hmm.
it comes up in some ways very just blatantly like that, where I
Yeah.
write a book that just combines the two things, writing and code.
Yeah.
But it comes up in a lot of other ways too that maybe people and some it's just like I write little programs for crossword things all the time. Like if I need to find all the words that start with the letter T, and then
Mm-hmm.
you replace the T with a B and you get another word like taste and
That
based
Totally.
or
That
whatever.
probably
Like
comes
like
in
a
in handy so much.
yes, it does. And so I whenever I make crosswords, especially themed crosswords, I
Mhm.
do some coding there and nothing
Yeah.
complicated, but just a little bit. And then now that I'm back working in like at a company,
Mhm.
the thing that we do is like the news quiz that I write, it's an app. It's a game that you play on the Bloomberg website every week. And there's code that was written to make it run.
Oh,
Um,
amazing.
and I'm not an engineer, but I work with a lot of engineers. And
Mhm.
so it is very helpful that I'm able to speak their language to some extent. Like
Yeah.
if I'm finding a bug, I can say, "Oh, I think you're pulling from the wrong database or
Yeah.
whatever. Or like like you get just yesterday we did a group quality QA,
Mhm.
quality assessment. I don't
Yeah,
remember. I don't know what
I
the
know
A
what that
stands
is.
for.
Yeah.
We were doing like QA testing for a new thing
Mhm.
that's coming out next week. And it was something that I'd done a million times before. Like I know how to do QA testing. I know what edge cases to test. And so that
Yeah.
came very easily, and it was easy to report the bugs and just things like that where like I'm not the one who's doing the engineering, but
Mhm.
I remember what that looks like. And as we're discussing game ideas and as we're developing, I know what's going to be a harder engineering problem and what's going to be an easy, just, basic coding kind of problem.
Yeah. That's
Um,
awesome.
and that helps us decide what to prioritize when we're even just making the
Totally.
games.
Totally. Yeah, it definitely seems like it comes in handy to have two completely different skill sets. You're kind of
Yeah.
like two employees in one, and you can kind of help the engineers be more efficient and kind of give them a head start, it seems
Yeah.
like. That's
I hope
awesome.
it is helpful to them, and it is not just me being like, "Oh, yes, I used to do this."
Yeah. Well, when you were a software engineer, you mentioned feeling stuck, quote unquote stuck. Was that kind of the feeling that pushed you towards change? And, in
Yes.
your whole journey, like what was the most challenging part? And then lastly, what kind of advice would you give to aspiring writers or puzzle makers today?
Yeah. Yeah, so when I was working in tech, I did feel very stuck, and I think about
Yeah.
this a lot because I think sometimes when we feel stuck, we we are stuck within boundaries of our own making.
Mhm.
Like an example of this was, up until recently we lived in the Bay Area, and whenever we were trying to solve problems within our family, there were some assumptions that we made. Like we had to stay in the Bay Area, like we had to live in the house that we had bought a couple years earlier. We assumed that I was going to keep doing the exact same job that I'd been doing, that my husband was going to do the exact same job he'd been doing. There was all these assumptions that we made that that sort of boxed us into a corner. But when we really dug down into it, we weren't really boxed into a corner because all the things boxing us in were things that we made up for ourselves. They were our
Yeah.
own
Your
rules.
choices.
They were our choices, exactly. And I think sometimes you forget how much agency you have as an adult. Like you can
Yeah.
choose to make different choices. And so we
Yeah.
very suddenly in our lives, just a year and a half ago or so, we sold our house. We packed everything up, put it in a storage pod, moved across the country. I got a new job. My husband got a different job.
You had a
Our
kid.
entire life with a kid. Yeah, we had a
Yeah.
6-month-old kid at the time. Our entire life kind of upended,
Yeah.
and things are so much better. And like we still have, things we're figuring out, but just in general, I would not say I feel stuck at all at the moment. I don't feel stuck by
That's
anything. Like
amazing.
everything I'm
Yeah.
doing, even if I'm overwhelmed at times,
Mhm.
when I think about what I would want to give up to be less overwhelmed, I genuinely can't think of a thing. And so
Yeah.
I think oftentimes it is. So if I were to give advice to myself from a decade ago or to someone else who is feeling stuck, I think it would be to think about, like, to put on a list, make a list of all the things that are keeping you stuck. And
Mhm.
with each one, be super honest with yourself if that is something that is actually a requirement or if it is just something that you are so used to thinking is a given that it feels like a requirement, but maybe it's not.
Totally. Totally. That's really good advice. I feel like maybe I'll do that for myself after this recording. Awesome. Thank you for sharing. So now that we know more about how you got into puzzle making, it's time to test your crossword knowledge with the very first trivia question.
Oh my goodness. Okay.
Okay, trivia question 1. Which language holds the record for having produced the longest single word ever used in a crossword puzzle?
Oh my goodness.
Yes. A, English. B, Hawaiian. C, Welsh. Or D, Spanish.
See, I was hoping you might say German as one of the options because that seemed like the kind of language that would be very long.
Yes, it does. I almost put that as one of the answers, but I
It's one of
decided
the
not
binaries.
to.
Okay. I feel like, okay, Welsh has a lot of like sounds that don't sound like English sounds, or like the letters don't look
Totally.
like they should sound, but I don't think of
Mhm.
Welsh as having particularly long words.
Mhm.
Spanish, I think I feel the same way about Spanish. I grew up taking Spanish, and I don't think of them as having particularly long words. I feel like the answer is maybe Hawaiian. I'm gonna go with Hawaiian.
That's a great guess. Unfortunately, that was not right.
Oh no.
But you were thinking on the right track. The answer was Welsh.
Okay.
And I'm going to, so you can kind of, this is a more visual thing here. So I'm going to put it in the chat and then I'll talk through it for the listeners.
Okay.
So the answer was Welsh, and I'm going to do my best to pronounce this. It is 58-letter word. Here I go. Lanfar Piggly Wiggly Groggery Chinwin Job Gog. So that's a word apparently in Welsh. It's 58 letters. It was used. This is the language that holds a record for having produced the longest single word ever used in a crossword puzzle. And this word, I'm not going to say it again, basically means a location in Wales. So it's specifically St. Mary's Church in the hollow of the White Hazel near a rapid whirlpool, and the Church of St. Tacilio of the Red Cave. So essentially this is a location in Wales. This is a name from the 19th century. It was basically a publicity stunt created to attract tourists to the village by giving it the longest name of a place in Great Britain at the time. Although, according to a quick Google search, its exact origin and its intended meaning remain slightly debated by locals and historians, but that's what's on the internet. So there you go.
That is really interesting. And this was in a crossword puzzle?
Yes, it was. And I have the link. That link shows the Guinness World Record of longest word in a crossword. And
wow.
That Welsh town.
That is so funny. Wow.
And I'll go.
Well, today I learned.
There you go. But your guess was really good. Your guess was Hawaiian. I was in Hawaii last week. I really try to pronounce Hawaiian words correctly, especially since I have family that lives there. And their longest word is 23 letters. It is a name of a fish. And here I go, trying to pronounce it. Lau Willy Willy Nuku Nuku Oi Oi. So it's basically a long-nosed butterfly fish. It's yellow color usually. And yeah, basically it's a long-snouted fish shaped like a willy willy leaf, which is basically describing the fish's elongated snout and its body shape, and resembles the yellowing leaf of the endemic willy willy tree. So Hawaiian was a really good guess.
I was thinking that maybe you learned this fact while you were in Hawaii.
No. I did do this research before the trip, but I will never forget Humu Humu Nuku Nuku Apua'a, which is another type of fish.
I know that fish from the song from
High School
Musical sequel. Yes.
Yes. Cool. Well, so I have 2 more trivia questions for you coming up in the show, so you have some redemption there.
I'll redeem myself. I will get them.
Yes. So yeah, actually, I've done some of your puzzles before in preparation for this episode, and they were hard for me. The Tuesday one was hard for me, so that says a lot about my puzzle ability, because basically, for listeners, I learned that the difficulty gets higher and higher as you go throughout the week.
Well, if it was the New Yorker Tuesday, it actually was harder because that goes in reverse order.
Oh my God, stop. Okay, wait. Let me double check which. I think it was the New Yorker.
It was hard.
Okay, good. Thank you. So I'm still working on that one. But anyways, what kept me going in that puzzle was really the fact that I had an idea of what the clues were referencing. Like, even if I didn't know exactly what the answer was, I had a sort of general idea. So there were topics like Starbucks, Taylor Swift, and overall things that were just culturally relevant to this day and age. And I thought that was amazing because too often I've strayed away from crossword puzzles because of like archaic references. But yours were super fun, and it felt catered towards people like me, even though I just picked a random Tuesday one from like July. So yeah, I was wondering, Aimee, can you share how do you get your inspiration for crossword puzzles and trivia topics today?
Yeah, so I try to stay very hip with the kids, very hello, fellow youth, and so I do try to like just keep up on like what are trends, what are common slang terms. I
Yeah.
don't say them in common parlance because I'm a millennial and therefore an old, and I don't want to sound silly, but
Go on.
but because I agree with you. I feel like I have so much more fun solving puzzles when they sound like what people sound like today. And so I'm constantly keeping my eye out for names of foods that I've never heard of maybe or never seen in a puzzle before. I anthropologically watch TikTok because I like to know what's trending. I listen to a lot of like pop culture podcasts, so I know even if I don't have time to watch every movie and TV show and listen to every album, I at least know what's out there. Just today, I added I don't know if it's pronounced XO sauce or if the XO is pronounced as like show or something, but there's like a type of I think it's it's a sauce from, I want to say it's from Hong Kong.
Okay.
That I've been seeing around, and so I just added that to my dictionary today.
That's amazing. I feel like my mom is Chinese, so I might be able to guess. I think the XO is like a J sound. Joe.
Yeah, there's a very I'm gonna look this up.
But I could totally be wrong.
No, I'm sure you're probably. Yeah, it is okay. It is Hong Kong. It's a spicy seafood sauce from Hong Kong with an umami flavor.
Nice. I love umami.
But it's both capitals. So it's X. Okay. It's like big X, big O. So I wonder if it's just pronounced XO sauce.
Oh, maybe.
Oh no, it is. It is XO. It's from extra old.
Very good. Okay.
XO sauce.
Cool.
Today I learned again.
Today I learned. What are some of the pop culture podcasts that you like to listen to? Side tangent.
So I keep up religiously with Pop Culture Happy Hour from NPR.
Okay.
And it's like 4 days a week or so. And they every day, most days, they take a movie or a TV show that just came out and they talk about it. They talk about it generally in a spoiler-free way. And so if you haven't seen it yet, you can still watch it without having anything ruined for you.
Nice.
But they're film critics, like they're critics, but they're very honest about the review of things. And sometimes that looks like this was terrible, but I loved it, or they'll like they're very real. Like they talk about shows the way that I talk about shows. And so I feel like I get a really good sense of if I'm going to like something based on their review of it. And so I've definitely discovered some shows and movies and some music that I otherwise would never have found because of listening to the podcast. But also, even if I never want to see it, but I just want to know that it exists, also a good way to do that.
Right, right.
Yeah, so that I listen to that regularly, and that I think keeps me fresh and sort of what's happening.
Totally.
But I solve a lot of puzzles too, and I find that very inspiring. Sometimes I get ideas for stuff just because sometimes I'll think a puzzle's doing one thing. I'll be like, oh, well, that's such a clever idea. And then I'm actually totally wrong and it's something different. But now I have a clever idea. So
I love that. Actually, that brings me to one of my follow-up questions was, now that your full-time job consists of puzzle making, where do you get your own puzzle entertainment for your own personal fun? And are there any other trivia or crossword writers that you enjoy that you could recommend?
Oh my gosh, so many. So like I said earlier, Learned League is I have such a love-hate relationship with it, more love than hate, but it's just really hard. Like you do it and even if you do great, you still miss a ton of questions. And so you just feel stupid all the time.
Oh.
And I love it. So a season just ended, and I did very well this season. So I'm happy with myself. But
Nice.
I absolutely, if anyone out there is looking to find a really good source of really good trivia, Learned League is excellent. And then also Jeopardy. I follow Jeopardy the way some people follow soccer. Like it is
Nice.
a sport to me. I I love it so much. And then I solve the daily. I solve the daily New York Times crossword most days. At least Monday through Thursday, I usually solve.
Okay.
And I really love Connections. Connections comes from a game show, a British game show called Only Connect, which it's hard to find access to it because it is British and they're always like taking down episodes from YouTube. But I also love Only Connect.
Nice.
I have done the online quiz league a few times, which I also loved, but it was so hard for me to schedule it that I kind of had to drop it. But I lament that fact every time I get an email saying a new season is coming up. They actually do an Only Connect online quiz league, which I did for one season, and like, oh, it's so good.
Nice.
So there's a lot.
Amazing.
If you start hunting for it, there are a lot of sources for good puzzles.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I'm very excited to join Learned League. For those listening, I'm pretty sure you need like an official referral to join.
Yeah.
You can't just join. And Aimee was nice enough to add me to her referral list. So I'm anxiously waiting for that invitation from them now that the season's over.
It's gonna come, and you're gonna regret your decision to join every day.
Yeah,
it's still
probably.
gonna be great.
Probably. So when making puzzles, what is your favorite word to use in puzzles? And then what is your favorite word overall? Just like general, something you use every day.
So it's kind of hard to say because when I'm making puzzles, my favorite words to put in puzzles are usually words that I've never put in a puzzle before. So I'm not always putting in my favorite word into puzzles. Now,
So
if you
it's, like,
want to
fresh.
think exactly, like I try to find words that no one has put in a puzzle before. So that's my favorite word, is one that like no one has used before. If you're asking about what's a word that I find myself always using in puzzles, Oreo.
Really? Oreo.
Brian Eno, E-N-O. Just, and it's not because they're like excellent words, but they're just really common. And they're common for a reason, because the letters are just, they're easy letters, and like they get you out of a lot of tight corners. Like, my gosh, the number of times I've put E-N-O in a puzzle, Brian Eno, it's just, I know so much about him. You know the Windows 95, like, duh sound effect?
I do. Yes.
Brian Eno wrote that.
No way.
Yeah.
Oh my God, that's so cool. That's a trivia question right there.
Exactly. So I know a lot about my old buddy Brian Eno.
I love that. I will definitely link that below. And then what's your favorite word overall? Like, what do you find yourself saying every day?
Oh gosh, that's hard. That's so hard too, because sometimes if I'm saying it all the time, then it's sort of like, it's like a tick word almost. Like, I'll say interesting, or like, okay, so I have a 2-year-old.
Yeah.
And my favorite word is probably whatever new word she just started saying.
Oh,
so
that's
like,
cute.
So like she just learned about the concept of buying something.
Oh.
So she'll like, because she'll say like more juice, and we'll be like, we're out of juice, we need to buy more. And she'll be like, more juice, buy.
Oh,
it just cracks me up. So now we're adding buy to everything that we say. So my favorite word might be buy these days.
That's so cute. And then if I chat with you like in 3 months or so, it'll probably be something completely different.
She also just discovered that she really likes soup, and so she'll ask for soup all the time.
Oh my God.
So I use the word soup right now.
That's so cute. I love that so much. I was told when I was growing up, learning how to speak, one of the words I said a lot was dubbage, which is not a real word, but that's what I called like trash can. The trash mixed with rubbish was dubbage. So
I love that so much.
Oh, so cute.
I love when kids invent their own words.
Yeah.
Neologisms, your favorite new words, neologisms.
Just more fun that way.
Exactly. I agree.
So I know you brought up earlier you love Learned League, and there are several other things online, trivia, crossword gaming sites that you love. But let's talk about physical games. What is your favorite board game of all time?
It would have to be Codenames. I
Yes.
love it. Is just there's something so simple about it. Like it is
Yep.
just word association. But
Yeah.
it is such a puzzle. Like
Mhm.
as the clue giver, I don't know, for people who have never played Codenames before, you're given this grid of words, and through some like complicated backstory of like you're a spy and you're trying to say the
Yeah,
names of
this
your
backstory
it
doesn't
kind of
really matter.
it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
The important thing is that you're trying to come up with a single word clue to encapsulate as many words in this grid as possible that are yours, because they're like some
Mhm.
words are assigned to you, some words are assigned to your opponent. You're trying to like have a single word clue that gets at as many of your words as possible without getting
Mhm.
at your opponent's words.
Yeah.
And so you, as the clue giver, and like no one is there's no puzzle mastermind behind the scenes like crafting a board in a way where like, oh, there exists a perfect answer here. Like no one's doing that.
Yeah.
But as the clue giver, you feel like there is a perfect solution where like if you can just give the best clue, they're gonna get all of the answers on the first try, and it's just like you feel that way. And so
Yes.
I end up just giving, and like I feel like I'm so good at this game, but the people I play with think I'm absolutely terrible because I come up with these like word associations that like no
For
one
like
would
7
ever,
words.
yeah, and no one in a million years would ever ever understand why in my head this was the
Yeah.
perfect word.
Yeah, I
love
totally
it so
get that.
much.
I love it so much too. The reason I asked this question is because my favorite game is also Codenames, and I knew you would say
Yes.
Codenames because we talked about it previously and I read an article. But anyways, another part I love about Codenames is that when you're giving the clue, the way I kind of like to play it is like trying to think about how that person or how your team is going to think. You have to think
Yes.
about how they're going to think, and you have to think about how they think you're going to think. So it's like really meta, and it's like
Yeah.
kind of a test to see like how well you guys know each other. So when I play with my boyfriend, for example, and he doesn't get it, I'm like, how did you not get that? Aren't we the same brain?
I know. Or sometimes you do something, you're like, oh, like this is, I'm referencing an inside joke. Like they're definitely going to get it.
Yes.
And then they have no idea what you're talking about. You're like, oh, are we even friends?
Right, exactly. And sometimes they're like, no, that was like, that was too far of a reach. That was like, you took it way too far, too many steps removed. But anyways, we obviously both love Codenames.
Love it.
I even have special edition versions of it. And I also saw online that one of your favorite games is Trivial Pursuit, right?
Of course.
Yes, duh.
As a trivia person, of course.
Yes, of course. But I read that your friends don't want to play Trivial Pursuit with you just because you're too good at trivia. So I thought it'd be fun to ask you a trivia question about Trivial Pursuit.
Oh my goodness. Okay, go for it.
All right, here we go. Trivia question 2. What country was Trivial Pursuit invented in? A, Canada, B, Australia, C, Scotland, or D, England?
Okay, I feel like it's not England.
Process of elimination.
Yeah, I just it doesn't feel British to me because I don't know why I feel that way, but I'm trying to think. Okay, so the categories, we have like arts and entertainment, sports and leisure, geography. I don't know, there's something about the categories that doesn't feel British to me.
Mhm.
I have no reason to say that. So I don't think it's British.
Okay.
I don't think it's Scottish either. Scottish,
Okay.
if it's Scottish, I think it would
Have
I just
weird
don't feel,
words.
it doesn't feel like
Yeah.
it comes from the British Isles.
Yeah.
My gut's saying Canada.
Is that your final answer?
I'm gonna go with Canada.
You're correct.
Yay! All right. I knew I
Yeah.
redeemed myself.
Redemption. Yes.
Redemption.
She is the Quizmaster. So, of course, this is a trivia podcast. I'm interviewing a professional trivia writer. So, of course, I had to ask you this. And of course, you got it correct. So, just a little background here. Basically, in 1979, Canadians Chris Haney, a photo editor from Montreal's The Gazette, and Scott Abbott, a sports editor for the Canadian Press, invented the game together. So Chris and Scott were friends. They invented the game Trivial Pursuit over a couple of beers at Chris's apartment. And it's as simple as that.
Gosh, I wish I had that kind of idea when I was gathering for a couple of beers with my friends.
Honestly, I think the best ideas come out of, being inebriated.
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah, a little bit. But hey, what I find with Trivial Pursuit is, everything's on paper. And as we learn with crosswords, you try to keep things relevant with your crossword puzzles. So, there's still time to invent a whole new game that could make things more relevant for people.
Absolutely. I will keep that in mind because I need my Trivial Pursuit,
Yeah, totally.
Aimee Pursuit.
Yeah, I love that. So you also mentioned earlier that during the COVID pandemic, you got really into Jeopardy. So we had to talk about that. And I know you kind of shared more into you made some flashcards, your family made fun of you. But I was wondering, have you ever thought about going on a game show like Jeopardy?
So I've been on a couple game shows.
Oh, really?
I've been on a few.
Huh.
I was on. So okay, so they are, some of them are more game shows and some of them are more like reality competition.
Oh my God,
type
amazing.
things. So my first one was, it must have been 2016. My husband and I were just starting to date.
Yeah.
And I think as a young woman in crosswords, people reach out to you for strange opportunities sometimes. And so someone found me for a game show called Superhuman, which was every episode was 5 people who had some kind of talent. And the talents were often very produced. But my talent was, it was I speak binary. I was memorizing the system of lights and some of the lights were going to be on and some of them were going to be off, and I was going to have to reproduce them. And so what I basically did was I converted the binary sequence into ASCII. And so if you don't know what ASCII is a system of encoding letters into binary. So every letter is it's a 5. I want to say it's 5 zeros and ones. And so if given any series of zeros and ones, you can kind of chunk it into 5-bit increments, memorize what the letters are, and you are then memorizing way less information. And then you re-encode it back into binary as you go. So you do a lot of pre-work to memorize what the alphabet is in binary. And then on the day of, you just have to memorize a series of a couple letters and then re-encode it back into binary. So I learned how to do this for the show. But it was a very interesting experience because it's not there was no way of being oh, you did better than you, because everyone had a different skill. And so there were judges who decided who the final 3 were, and then the audience applauds and picks their favorite winner. I don't even think I made the final 3. The person who won my episode was this genius child who could do really, really fast mental math. And he'd been doing this for his entire life. And another person on my episode, he's a mountain climber who does memory stuff the same way that I do trivia, he does memory competitions. And his skill involved him coming down from the ceiling in a harness and then doing this spinny thing in order to crack safes. It was really cool. I had
oh my God.
My talent was nowhere near as cool as the other people's. But that was my first game show. I was also on a game show called You Bet Your Life, which was a Jay Leno show that was a remake of an old Groucho Marx show.
Okay.
And I won $2,500. It was a team show.
God.
So I won some amount of money on that show. And then my third game show, I honestly haven't even watched this episode because I'm so embarrassed about how I did. I was on a game show called Switch, which was on Game Show Network. And I was doing well, and then at the end I kind of made some mistakes, and there was just no way to come back from it. But so those are my 3 game shows.
That's so cool. I can't believe we didn't talk about this initially. That's so amazing. The mountain climber guy sounds like he would be amazing at Big Brother.
Oh, probably,
But
actually, yeah.
yeah, now that we know your strategy on, solving puzzles with binary, I'm curious, what is your strategy when it comes to solving trivia or Jeopardy, type questions? Because I know those are like very specific.
Yeah, so I would love to be on Jeopardy someday. That's like my bucket list number 1. Like,
Yeah.
I would love to be on Jeopardy. The problem is that I tend to be kind of slow when it comes to answering questions, which is why I tend to prefer formats like Learned League, where you have an entire day to come up with the answer. Because sometimes I need an entire day to come up with an answer, or even if it's just 5 minutes. Like, I wake up and I know that I know the name of that author, and I just can't remember it. I tend to that happens a lot, where I have like something on the tip of my tongue and I just can't come up with it.
Oh my
And so
gosh, that happens
I
to me
would
all the time.
love it happens all the time. And I'm sure it happens to people on Jeopardy too, but I feel like I would need to spend a really long time preparing to have things on a really rapid fire recall. So when I'm solving Jeopardy style questions, that just has to be like, you just have to know it. You have to know it cold. You can't
Quick.
hesitate. Yes. Yeah. Learned League is very different in that their questions are meant to be thought about for a long time sometimes. And sometimes it is just a really simple, like, do you know the name of this author or not? But more often than not, some of the questions, if you don't know the answer outright, you can kind of figure it out if you give yourself time. An example, one of the Learned League questions from the last day of the season had a quote from a poem and the title of that poem, and it said, who wrote this poem? And I've never heard this poem before. I have never heard the line that was quoted. I have never heard the title, but the title was written in lowercase, and the word I was in the title, and that was lowercase. And I know that E.E. Cummings wrote in all lowercase letters, and so I figured this had to be E.E. Cummings. And so even if I didn't know that cold, I like trivia that feels a little bit like a puzzle. And so when I'm writing trivia, I keep that in mind, because I do write some trivia questions that are a little bit more like, you either know this or you don't. But I so much prefer writing trivia questions that have, where the trivia is something you need to have in order to figure out the puzzle.
Yes.
But the puzzle is kind of the game of it. So like I recently wrote a question for something at work, and it's for people who really know pop culture. And so I can't just ask straight pop culture trivia questions, because it's either they're going to know it and it's not going to be fun, or they're not going to know it because it's like too obscure. So I had to come up with another way in. And so what I did was, so like an example of one of the questions is, the show The Studio what won big at the Emmys recently, as it should have. It's an excellent show. It had 3 people nominated for Best Supporting Actor and Actress, and then it had multiple choice, and it said, which of the following movies did not feature one of the 3 people nominated for Best Supporting Actor or Actress? So you have to know who the 3 people are that were nominated, and the answers to that are Catherine Hahn, Ike Barinholtz, and Catherine O'Hara. And then you have to know what the movies are and who the cast members are in each movie, and line up one cast member with each movie. And then the one remaining is the answer. That's what none of them starred in. So I like that. And it's hard, but if you like really, if you know your stuff and you really sit down and think about it, you can figure it out. And I love stuff like that.
Yeah, I really appreciate those kinds of puzzles where it's like it takes it a step further, and it also kind of gives you more of a hint if you kind of know like what realm the question is about. And I know you've once said that when making a puzzle, basically, this is just another way to restate what you just said, but there's a quote. I can link it below too, but you've said once that when making a puzzle, you envision the game that the solver must play in order to get the answer. And the example you gave about E.E. Cummings, I think, is perfect, because you knew as the player, okay, the title is lowercase. I need to figure out what authors write in all lowercase. And that was the answer. So,
Exactly.
I guess you kind of already answered my next question, which was, what are the types of games, quote unquote games, that solvers can play that you envision when you're writing a puzzle? And one of you just gave an example was, about the actors and actresses.
Yeah.
But are there any other types?
Oh, there's so many. I mean, I'm always on the hunt for a new game. Like if I could come up with like I was so proud of this. There was in the news a couple of weeks ago, there was a series of 3 countries that all had their PMs resign with the span of like a couple of days. Japan's PM announced he would resign. France's PM resigned, and Nepal's PM resigned. And I thought that was interesting. And so what I decided to do was have a question about each of them, and have the first one. The answer was it was about Japan's PM announcing he would resign, but it read like it could have maybe been about France. And so, so you had to know that it wasn't France. So the game there was just like, do you know that this isn't France, basically?
Right. Yeah.
The second one was about France, and it was very explicitly about France. But the game was, so the question was, what's the name of the new PM? And I think people more commonly knew the name of the old PM. And so the game there was that I gave the translation of his last name into English. So even if you don't know, so his name is Le Cornu, and even if you don't know that's his name, you might know that corn often means horn, like unicorn, or cornet, the instrument. And so even if you don't know that Le Cornu is the new PM of France, you might know a little bit of France or Romance languages or etymology to figure out his name. And then the third question, and those first 2 games are things that I've they're not new, like I've done those before, but I was proud of the third one because it was about Nepal's PM. And so his name was KP Sharma Oli, and I don't expect people to know that. Yeah. But I had included his name as a wrong answer in each of the 2 previous questions. And so I said that in the thing, in the clue. In the clue I said, you may have seen his name twice in the last couple of minutes.
Oh my God, that's
and so
so
the
tricky.
game there, it was, and I was so proud of this because I've never done that before, and I've never seen that done before. And so it's always fun to me when I can come up with a new game that at least I've never played before.
Yeah, that's awesome. So it sounds like, correct me if I'm wrong, but it sounds like you come up with the answer first.
I do. So oftentimes the way that I write these questions is I read the story, and if the story's big enough news, then I think, what is the answer going to be? Because if the answer is a person or a country or a company that we talk about all the time, it's not going to be that interesting. So if I can come up with like a new person or a new country or a new company or just a new way in, it becomes a much more interesting question. So once I have that answer, I will kind of work my way backwards and write the question in a way that'll lead you to the answer.
I love that. I feel like my trivia questions from here on out will hopefully be a lot better. Not that mine are bad, but I feel like I'm learning a lot from this conversation. And, I did research before recording this podcast, so I kind of tried to keep that strategy in mind when writing these questions.
Totally.
But yeah, this is really, really, really awesome to know. And I feel
we've figured this out as we've been working on it too. Like we've gotten better at it, and at this point we do it every week. I write 12, 13 questions every week. And I've been doing that for 7 months now, 8 months.
Amazing.
8 months. You get practice.
Yeah, of course. So at what point in your career were you coined the Quizmaster, and how did that happen?
I gave myself that name.
Oh, I love that.
I'm so glad that it comes across as me being extremely legitimate, but we just thought it would be funny to we just were being amused with ourselves. Like I was told that I could write this newsletter every week where I just kind of talked about the questions that I write, which is really fun for me because I wrote the questions. I'm happy to talk about them. I just thought it'd be funny to give myself a name, the Quizmaster. I feel like maybe my editor had been introducing me around the office as this is Aimee, our Quizmaster. And I was like, oh yes, I'm the Quizmaster. So I don't think it was there wasn't I wasn't like bestowed a title like a knight or anything. I think it was like a joke.
All right, so we've basically made it through all of my content, but I want to wrap up with just one final question. You mentioned earlier that you kept getting pulled back towards writing as your creative outlet. Can you explain the draw towards writing young adult books rather than, adult books? And then also, what was your favorite young adult book growing up?
I'll start with my favorite young adult book growing up because I think that kind of feeds into what keeps bringing me to writing
Yeah.
kids' books. So growing up, I mean, there were many books that I adored as a kid. Harry Potter was obviously a huge one. My
Yeah.
daughter is actually I named her Lyra because of the Golden Compass series, His Dark Materials by Philip
Oh,
Pullman.
yeah, I read that.
And that it's spelled the same. I, as a child, pronounced it Lyra because now that there's been audiobooks and movies and whatnot, I know it is pronounced Lyra in the context of
Oh,
the book. But it is and will always be Lyra to me. Lyra is also the
that's
Greek
beautiful.
pronunciation, and my husband and his family are Greek. So
That's beautiful.
that book had a huge thank you. That book had a huge impact on me growing up.
Yeah.
And I think I still read as an adult when I can. Like my life's really busy, but I don't think I ever will connect with the book in the same way that I did as a kid. I think there is something magical about reading as a child when like the wall between reality and fiction hasn't been built yet, and you allow yourself to be immersed in stories in a way that just isn't possible when you're an adult because you're too aware. Your hypothalamus has merged too much. Like, I'm making this. I don't know. But there's something that happens when you're a kid and you're reading a book and you fall into it and you believe everything so intensely and you meet characters and they become your best friends in a
Yeah, they
very
do.
real way. And books had such a huge impact on me as a kid. And so I think I'm drawn to stories for kids for that same reason.
Yeah.
I also think to some extent I write the story in the way the story needs to be written. So if a story comes to me and it makes sense to be a middle grade novel, like if the character starts speaking and she speaks in a 12-year-old voice, it's a middle grade novel.
Mm-hmm.
At the same time, I have other book ideas that are not middle grade at all. They're older young adult, or they're chapter books, or they're picture books. And it really, at least so far in my life, the format of the book has been dictated by the content of the book.
Yeah.
And I think there's a very realistic chance that at some point in my life I will end up writing an adult book, but the story would have to be relevant for that. I had a very fascinating medical situation happen to me postpartum, which sparked a whole lot of changes in her life. And I continuously come back to the fact that I would love to write a memoir about that time in my life. And someday I would that would be an adult book for sure. So
For sure.
I think people, at least when I write stories, I am usually writing a book to work through a complicated set of circumstances or emotions or feelings or whatever that I am currently working through. And oftentimes it is only years after I have had that experience that I'm able to look at it with the distance required to write about it. And so, for example, when I was writing Emmy and the Key of Code, it's a book about a girl who was trying to decide if she is a musician or if she's a software engineer. And that was happening at a time when I was having this exact same internal debate. And I had been debating this for years within myself. And it was only when I was like at the very tail end of being done with tech, basically, that I was able to look back with the impartiality to write a book about it. My second book, Recipe for Disaster, it's about a girl who isn't sure if she counts as Jewish. She grew up in a family that is sort of ethnically Jewish, but not, and culturally to some extent, but not religious. And, you know, she doesn't
Mm-hmm.
practice. And that's exactly how I grew up. But
Mm-hmm.
here I am, 30 plus years old, writing about the feeling I had at 13 of being Jewish, but not being bat mitzvahed. And I think it takes a long time for me to get that perspective. And so, you know, now I'm 30, 35, whatever. I'm in my 30s, having experiences that I will only be able to put words to a decade or two from now. And so I
Yeah.
expect that at some point in my life, I will possibly write a book for an older audience, but it's really the story has to come to me first.
Yeah, of course. That totally makes sense. You need that perspective on what's actually happening. That reminds me of a Taylor Swift lyric. I always do this. I love Taylor Swift. So the lyric
Yeah.
is time. I'm just going to say it, not sing it. Time, doesn't it give some perspective? So there you
Yeah.
go. That makes
Yep.
so much sense.
I love her.
And
She has such a way with words.
yes, she does. So we have to talk about your new book coming up. This was a perfect segue into your new book. You have a new book coming out in October. I think by the time this episode comes out, it will already be out. But could you give a little insight into what it is?
I put it next to me just in case. This book is called Words Apart. I have been working on this book for so long, and it is finally entering the world, and I could not be more excited. So Words Apart is a story about sisters, Olive and Maddie. And
Nice.
they are not twins, but they're in the same grade because Maddie was held back a year. And they are polar opposites and also best friends. Olive is very verbal. She likes words. She collects words. Her part of the story is told in verse that resembles dictionary definitions with some crossword puzzle
Oh,
stuff built in.
nice.
She's also a crossword writer.
I
And
love
so
that.
somewhere in here, if I can find it, are actual crosswords that she makes for the school paper. See if I can find a good one.
So
There's
is she
only
kind of
3.
representing you? Is she?
Yeah, you wonder
Yeah.
where I got a lot of this stuff from. So yeah, so at some point she makes
Oh,
crossword puzzles.
nice.
And then her sister Maddie is her total opposite. She struggles with words, she prefers pictures, and her side of the story is told in comics.
Very
And
cool.
so I have been working on this for a lifetime, I feel like.
I imagine you probably had to work with an artist to do the comic part, right?
Yes. Yeah, I am not an artist. And so we worked with, actually, it's a sister duo. It's twins, Philippa and Rachel
How
Corkett.
fitting.
Very fitting. And so it's a process. Writing any book is a process. This book also had a couple like situational circumstances. My publisher bought the book and then got bought by a bigger publisher. And so there was some stuff there also. So it was,
Yeah.
I've been thinking about this book since 2017. I started writing it in 2019, and here we are in 2025, finally being published.
Oh my
So
gosh, 7
I'm
years later. Wow.
so excited. But yeah, so it's the
That's
story
so
of these two
exciting.
sisters, best friends, total opposites, and what happens to their relationship as family circumstances and school circumstances go in ways that they don't foresee.
Yeah. And, you were just showing the book, and for people who are listening, it looks like a pretty thick book. What grade would you recommend is a good reader for
So
this?
it's for ages 8 to 12, and it is thick. It has 400 pages, but it's half of it's graphic novel and half of it's
Right.
verse. And so it's actually a very, very fast read, even though it
Okay.
looks and feels like it might take you a year to read. It will not.
And when you say verse, does that kind of mean like in song format?
It's like poetry, but I
Okay.
hesitate to call every verse passage here poetry. Some are definitely more poetic than others.
Yeah.
It is a free verse format with a lot of white space and line breaks. And my thinking,
Okay.
like in each of my books, I have 3 books now that all incorporate verse in some way. And with Emmy and the Key of Code, I feel like the majority of them, like I wrote that in verse to make it feel like music. And so it does have a much more like lyrical, rhythmic musical quality to it in some ways. Recipe for Disaster had a lot more prose in it, and the poem sections were very like intentionally placed to feel poetic in specific ways. Here, it's less that I think of these as poems and more that I wanted the visual spacing to kind of mimic like a dictionary or to mimic like how you might see a crossword, because like crosswords are not written in like paragraph form. They're written in these sort of like chunky left adjusted words.
Yeah.
And so it was less me feeling like this is made of poems and more that this was just like a style of my character's speech. But that's a very like inside baseball.
Totally.
Like,
Yeah. Very cool. Well, I'm so excited to read it. Even though I'm an adult, like I want to read it. And congratulations for, 7 years in the making. This book has finally come to life. So very excited and congratulations.
Thank you so much. I'm really excited to finally share it with the world.
Yay! All right, Words Apart comes out October. By the time this episode is out, I'm pretty sure it'll be out. But yeah, Aimee, that is all I have for you today. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you. This was really, really fun. It was an honor to be your first guest, your first non-family friend guest.
Yeah, honestly, first official guest. Super exciting since like I've been doing this podcast for over a year now, and kind of, took it in my reins like as the main host back in May. So it's super exciting that, I guess 5 months later, it's kind of taking off. So yeah, thank you to those of you who made it to the end of this episode. Thank you, Aimee, for being on the show today. It was a pleasure to speak with you. All right. Well, thanks for listening.
And learning.
If you enjoyed this episode, please give us a 5-star rating or thumbs up, follow or subscribe, and share with a friend. For bonus content, you can find Trivia Tangents on TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, and of course, all podcast platforms under Trivia Tangents Podcast. Check out our website at triviatangentspodcast.com to purchase trivia starter packs based on these episodes. Perfect for hosting your very own trivia night.